Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is Tuesday, 4th of May, 2021. Welcome to episode 7 of Hindsight, where we learn to be a better trader. Now, we're going to look at ODY and GBR, and we're going to take some learnings from episode 6 of NOV and our match trading there, and directly relate it to GBR in a sense. Before we take a look at the order book, let's dive into the announcement for today. Now, there were a couple of other stocks. We had Kogan and Nick Scali that looked all right today, but really I want to focus on these two because they were sort of the announcement trades, the sort of catalyst trades, if you will. Now, we have 40 meters at 1.5, 40 meters at 1.0, 15 meters at 1.0, all shallow, all really good, considering the market cap is 12 million or 13 million the day before. So these intercepts are becoming more common. I mean, a year or two ago, we never really saw these long intercepts of 1 gram a ton. I can think of AGY was sitting at 40 meters of like 2.3 grams a ton, maybe a year or two ago, and that was considered low grade. Like that was the equivalent of what 1 gram a ton is now, I guess. It's long intercepts. Has no problem getting to about 25-30 mil market cap on these kind of intercepts and grades. You know, one might see 1 gram a ton and be like, yeah, it's not that great. But really, with long intercepts, it's not too bad. It can be economical for some companies. I think Newcrest Metals, NCM, is economical at like 0.3 grams a ton or something like that on one of their pits or one of their mines. So these can be economical, especially since the price of gold is still sitting pretty. So what we have, let's have a look at the order book for this one. This is the replay. So this is 10:03:16 as of right now in this replay. The earliest this stock can open is 10:04:15. So this is exactly a minute before the match. We're going to take a real quick look how it jumps from 6.2 to 7 cents. And what I want to pay attention to is this 6.5 wall that occurs, right? So the indicative at the moment is 6.2, but the 6.5 never really changes that much. So it's going to fast forward a little bit. So it goes 6.3, 6.4. Everything's looking okay. Like it's not rapidly pumping into the open. But it's from around this 6.5 level that things start to heat up a little bit. You can see the orders jumping. They're in fact pulling the orders from the earlier price and just adjusting them. So these aren't fresh orders. These are just orders leapfrogging over each other. Now at 10:04:15, I would argue that it in fact does look like a good match trade. And we'll just give it a quick pause when it gets there. So 10:04:15, it opens up, I think, another 10 seconds or so. There's a 30-second randomized window from when it can open. And you can see 7 cents, and it looks a little bit crazy. So it opens with a strong positive. You can see 7 cents, big stack. There is nothing wrong with matching on that long. I think it's fine. It sort of rose a little bit too quickly, and what I saw was this wall at 6.5, and that was what I call like the last chance kind of wall. So I put my order in at 6.6, waiting to be filled. I was kind of a little stung by what happened with NOV, so I kept in mind that, hey, this jumped a good 5-6 ticks in a very, very short space of time. Now, the difference between this and NOV is that this actually has some walls, right? There's walls at every line. And on the sell side, it's dead thin, right? 99 times out of 100, this is a good trade. If you look at a book like this, it matches and opens like this. This is good for a long every day of the week. Plus, the news announcement was good. But what we're going to see is that nothing really happens. Count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seconds. This is about 7 or 8 seconds after the match price. What has happened? Nothing. So there's a thing that I do kind of subconsciously, whereas I kind of count to 5 seconds in my head. I don't really have a plan, right? It's not like, hey, I'm going to count to this many seconds. What I do is I look at the book and I go, right, nothing's happening, nothing's happening, nothing's happening. Get the fuck out of there. That's the idea for a long trade. For short trades, it's a little bit different, but for matching long, if nothing happens on a spec stock after it opens on my long position, get the fuck out. The alternative is we can see 7 cents gets wiped in a second. And you can just see that was about 15 seconds, I think, from match where this happens. So there's no option for zero risk, right? You get in at 7 cents. You can't get out at 7 cents because one person sells into the entire line. So in hindsight, if I did have this long position, hit out at 6.9 instantly. There's no There's no thinking. It's not queuing at 7. Instantly hit out at 6.9. You've got about 2 seconds to do it, not even. So really have that finger on the trigger kind of thing. 6.8. So here I am at 6.6 in front of this 6.5 wall. I consider this stock dead in the order book if it drops below 6.5. Now, I've kept in mind that, you know, from 6.5 is where the stock kind of rallied to 7 cents into the match. So 6.7 gone, 6.6 gone, filled. 6.5 takes a nibble. The plan was if half of this gets taken, just like that, half of it got taken, but instantly 6.6 got stacked. So even if I wanted to hit out for 1 tick, I would have hit out for 0 because instantly that 6.6 popped up and I went, oh, okay, I'll let this go for another second. 6.7 starts getting hit. Like, oh, okay, maybe I'll just give it another couple of seconds. Because at this point in time, there's no point in hitting out, right? This looks like the bottom is forming. And then it's just a matter of waiting and waiting and waiting, and you'll eventually see 6.6 starts getting a little bit of a nibble. Orders get pulled on the sell side, and what we have is a little bit of a fight. I was willing to give it 1 tick risk, not 0 ticks in this case. And you can see lines start getting wiped. The sell side was getting pulled as well. So really, this ended up being quite a beautiful trade. You can just see the momentum swing. And I hope that sort of this visual representation of the book can show you why my trade was at 6.6 with the 6.5 wall and why 6.5, if that actually all of it got sold into and the bids didn't step up, why that would be a sort of a dead trade possibly. You know, to me, it all seems quite intuitive, but it might not be for you guys. So I'm trying to explain it as best as I can for what I see and sort of the justification behind what I did. So to me, it made sense. All in my head, it made sense. Applying a little bit of that NOV lessons learned. Obviously, it's not the same thing. Obviously, it's not. But there is a component there where the stock rallies too quickly in the final seconds. And that I sort of just applied that. And I guess I was a little bit spooked. But either way, in hindsight, would have got stopped out for a tick if I matched. And then was happy with the trade from here. Took it from 6.6 to... what was it? 8 point something? 8.2, I think it was. So really, really good trade for the day for GBR. Really good trade. Really happy with it. What we have, and here's just what the chart looked like for today. This actually ended up being a complete shit show once it hit 9.2. I'll show you guys on the daily why 9.2 was significant. Here it is. It's as simple as this. There's a horizontal. That's it. Everyone else can see that horizontal. Guess where the sell pressure is going to come up? It's at that 9.2 level, right? So it doesn't mean that there's historical holders of this. That's nothing, right? That's how many holders is that? That's 26 million volume out of today's 206 million volume, right? So it's not like people that were holding here trapped from October are the ones creating the sell pressure here. No, it's the people that are trading it that see the same thing that everyone else does, and that's a strong horizontal level. It's the only technical level that exists, guys, here. There's nothing else. And at this price range, I can't calculate the market cap from the top of my head, but let's say 4.6 to double. Okay, so double the market cap. That's about 26 million at 9 cents, roughly, right? 13 mil market cap at 4.6. Close enough. 26 mil at 9 cents, 9.2. That's about right. From a fundamental perspective, I would price that in that 25 mil range. It just happens to line up with the technicals, but I think the selling really came down to technicals anyway. And there was really no real reason. It looked technically fine. Bit of a consolidation, a bit of a little trick down there. And it looked good to swing up, but I didn't really see it going anywhere beyond maybe 9.8. And that's because, you know, we've hit this level. We've hit this level here where 10 cents is a psychological level. A stock, when it hits this kind of mid 8s, high 8s, it tends to be a magnet for micro caps to rally to that 9.9/10 cent level. So didn't get there. Played it for a few ticks and didn't really make too much out of this trade here. Ultimately, there was not a lot. There's a lot of fuckery in the order book as well. So you can see, you know, there's high volume, just lots of orders being pulled, lots of orders being stacked. Fake orders everywhere. This was just a shit show to trade. Once this topped out initially at 9.2, 9.3, whatever this ended up hitting, it was a shit show. Everything else after that, the order book was just garbage. It was a real terrible trader. If you have Spark Replay, I guarantee, like, just go look at it. I recommend looking at this stock and the order book and seeing why it's so fucking tragic. Looking at the order book after like 11 o'clock in the morning is borderline pointless. And you'll see what I mean, right? You'll see the chart set up. It looks good. It breaks highs. It breaks to the upside. You can see the horizontal targets. But even on the way up after creating a new high here, it just wicks down with, you know, fake orders coming in. Really strong, heavy fake orders getting added onto the ask and then getting pulled. And then buyers stepping up with big orders. It's just a real fucking shit fest. So these kinds of stocks, you know, when people ask, you know, well, the order book says this and that at like 12 o'clock. It's like, no, just don't look at the order book at 12 o'clock. It's designed to fuck you over. There's no other way of putting it. Just look at the chart, look at the volumes. That's all that matters, in my opinion, anyway. Because, of course, I'm not a financial advisor and this isn't financial advice, yada, yada, yada. So, moving on to Odyssey. We have an interesting stock here with visible chunk of gold. Now, this was fascinating because this rarely happens, right? Like this kind of visible gold, almost non-existent. The last time we saw this was very recently at ASO. Let's have a look at the announcement, actually. I didn't plan on having ASO up, but since it's here, so 8th of April, half a meter at 4 kilos per ton. It's a monstrous grade. I don't think I've ever seen anything that high. But this is the mineralization, the visible mineralization, and what came from it, right? 1 meter at 2 kilos or whatever, half a meter at 4 kilos, 4,000 grams a ton. So what you have here in this core is a shit ton of gold. Even though it's a small intercept, right? 0.5 isn't that fantastic, but people love visible golds. People love nuggets as well. So what we have is this is the comparison, right? Compare these, the drills from ASO here to ODY. So to me, this looks fucking great, right? We've got ASO, a little bit of a story for ASO, I guess, just so you can have some reference. This is a 130 mil market cap stock as of today. But keep in mind, just because it's 130 mil doesn't mean that, you know, this one thing, this one visible gold intercept is the reason for it. So we can see this is the announcement from that visible gold, right? It did a massive gap up, sold off, and then eventually came back up. But the initial visible gold was down here on the 10th of March. This just happened to be the grading of that gold. So let's take a look at the 10th of March for ASO. Go to announcements. I should have had this all prepared, but you know what? You'll fucking wait. You'll watch me browse hot copper. I know you like it as much as I do. ASO 10th of March. So here's the visible gold announcement. So no grading, no nothing, just hey, we actually have this good looking intercept. Right, so this stock rallied on that announcement alone from 6 cents, and it had a bit of a sell-off. It was a red candle day. And eventually grinded its way up. And then we had an announcement, I think, a week or two later, somewhere around here, or was it here somewhere? Tolga Kumova, who's kind of a well-known figure on Twitter for micro-cap investing and trading. He got assigned as a chairman, I think, of the board, and that sort of, you know, really pushed the stock up. So it's not just ASO going from down here to up here on the base of just that drill core alone. There's a little bit more to the story. But the idea is that ASO is 135 mil market cap. We've got Odyssey, which is sitting at 37 mil market cap, you know, times 2. So we're sitting at maybe 80 mil market cap, a little bit under 80. My target initially was 18 cents. That was just the number I had in my head, looking for that 90, a little bit over 90 mil market cap. That was the plan for today. What I ended up doing, this was also a bit of a funny trader, was catching the match on this one and seeing it dip down and wipe. You know, this is like the horizontal level. I'll show you guys. If I just draw the horizontal there, take off the VWAP bands. Yeah, look, this dip kind of spooked me. The idea is I don't hold losses. I cut as soon as possible. So bought in at match, sold out at match, and that's it really. It was just a bit disappointing. I was expecting a bigger drive to the upside, especially because the gap wasn't... I didn't feel it was that significant considering the market cap. Doesn't matter. Volumes came in, broke the opening horizontal as well. So this actually was a one tick trade. Sorry, no, this is not correct. I ended up catching this horizontal. That was always the plan. So my mistake. That was the entry. That was the exit. Got a couple of ticks out of it. The price action didn't lead me to believe that this was going to go straight to 18 cents. I was actually quite disappointing to see that this ended up coming back down. I ended up talking about, in one of my Hindsight videos, about this chart setup. So let me just quickly draw it. So it was this little lump back down to the lows and then grinding and recovering, right? Doesn't happen very often. I talked about how this is basically a terrible, terrible sort of trade to, the chance of recovery from these kinds of lows down here is just low, right? It gets less and less. The chances that this swings up, the more that it ticks down and grinds at its lows. It's usually a bad thing. So I was planning on some sort of trade here where it cracks down and sort of eventually comes back up and grinds its way back up. Didn't eventuate, ended up breaking out for even and waited and waited and waited. There was a bit of a consolidation here. This is what I was seeing. And then a high volume spike came in here and wiped this 12. And I was in queue at 12, couldn't take the 12, took the 12.5. I had to pay up at the 12.5. And very shortly after, we ended up having a line wipe, a push to 13 cents as well. That was really quite nice. And what we have is a really nice push and then a... Let me just bring up the VWAP bands. A sort of a bounce off VWAP, but the way that this was trading, right, what it felt like was that this was the opportunity for everyone to get out. And the moment this broke, that was a moment of potential reversal for me. Obviously, something below VWAP is usually quite bearish. There's a chance that this could have failed, but the plan was to wait for the volumes to come in. You can see sort of the volumes were dead, dying. It was just ticking down, ticking sideways, churning the volume. And suddenly we had a buyer step up and then an even bigger buyer step up. And that to me is always a good sign. At least take it to VWAP. Held it through to 14 cents. So on the swing back up, didn't have the balls to hold to 14.5. The book was messy. Shouldn't have looked at the book, I know. 14 was the trade there. So happy with what I got considering the circumstances of the stock. So 12.5 to 14. Took a couple of break evens early on. Took a 1 cent trade there. And rode this momentum here as well. This was really on the back of knowing what the potential is behind the story, I guess, right? So looking back at ASO, the thick intercepts, the thick visual intercepts, and I did get back in at 13.5. So ended up getting back in the sell-off. So I am holding this overnight. Did get in at 13.5 on the sell-off because I just don't see this going down. I personally don't. I'm not recommending you to buy or sell or do anything with this stock, and I'm not a financial advisor, yada, yada, yada. But for me personally, I see this grinding its way up, similar to ASO, based on the fundamentals of the stock. And the fundamentals really just comes down to how valuable is this? How many grams a ton is in this thing? And how many weeks is it going to take till we find out? Probably going to take a while, but I suspect the market will grind its way up until the news announcement. So we have some reference here with ASO, which is always good. And look, even ASO took a few days to really sort of kick up into gear and didn't even turn into a bagger until like 3 weeks later, 2-3 weeks later. So yeah, so the plan for ODY is a short-term swing, short-term hold, and see where it goes from there. Otherwise, if you found anything helpful, useful, did you learn something? Fuck me, this has gone for nearly 20 minutes. My God, I must have rambled on a lot for 2 stocks. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good night.